Okay, class, I'm not torturing you with my face this time, although I'm in the Friday Fun Day. This is how the screen is probably going to look a lot of times when we're doing notes. Every unit has a smartboard file, and it'll be, I'm sure most of you are used to a smartboard, and the notes will be up on a smartboard. And we'll be taking notes in this online Google format, and so these notes will be shared with you here. I did tell you that for the purposes of like charts and graphs and things where we're tracking how you guys do as a class, your classes are color coded. So first is red, third is blue, fourth is green, seventh is yellow. AP is kind of on their own little thing, but they are charted as well and are red. So hopefully, if you're listening to this, you already have your document of the week in. Your document of the week is due by the start of class every Friday. Now, Monday, you're going to get a new one. I cannot emphasize this to you enough. You should just do that document of the week assignment on Monday or Tuesday. If you run into any troubles, you'll have time to ask me questions because every week it gets assigned. It is always due by the start of class on Friday. So if your first period, that's 8 a.m. And go on right on down the line, even if it's seventh period, it's whatever the start of your class time is. And if it registers as a minute later, I'm not accepting it. So you've got all of these other days to do it. So make sure you get those in. Hopefully you already got those in. And hopefully you already did your pre-test. So what I'm going to do is skip out of this page real quick, and I'm going to go over to that not secret, but my student account. And I'm going to jump into, just for an example, fourth period. So now I'm recording this on Thursday, so there should be another post here, including this video. But remember, I'm just going to keep emphasizing this over and over again. You have something posted in the live stream every single school day. And when I post that date, you do all of the things listed for that particular day. Sometimes I tell you, oh, this video is optional or this video is required. Listen, if it doesn't say optional, it's required. So Thursday, you were assigned a pretest. Some of you have still not done that pretest. I'm going to keep that open for now. And that means that you could complete that and still get the credit for that. Now, the document of the week, that if it's past the start of your class period, I'm sorry, I'm sticking to my guns on that one because all you had to do was write one sentence. But you're going to have, several more. We're going to have one every single week. So missing one isn't the end of the world. Missing 2 or 3 or 4. Now you're talking about lowering your grade a letter, 2 letter, 3 letters down. But we're going to go, if you haven't done your SLO or pre-test, go back and do that. That's the beauty of Google Classroom. You can kind of go back in time. So, you could just keep scrolling back to see things that you might have missed on certain days. And I'm going to click on this to show you a few things. One, so it's got me listed in my fake student account, and that'll be your email right there. I'm so old that they thought my graduation year would be 2099. Pretty rude. But your questions on your real test are going to look very similar to this. Even when we're back in person, the format is exactly the same. It's going to be 34 multiple choice, 2 short answers, and 1 extended response. So it's really easy on the Google Forms because let's say freedom of assembly. I'm not even going to read it. We're just going to click one answer. So you just click the answer that is correct and you move on. Now, if we're in person, we do this on a Scantron. So you have one piece of paper that has all the questions and another piece of paper you bubble in the answers. Actually, I like this so much that I might continue to use these, although I've been doing a lot of typing. Okay, so you keep answering all these multiple choice questions, keep answering, and then once you do the 34 multiple choice questions, and sometimes even those are broken up because some might be about a particular graph or chart, when you finish that section, you hit next. And when you're done with that section, you get to, maybe the next chunk of multiple choice, but then eventually to the short answer questions. So when you have a short answer question, my expectation is that you write 2 sentences because each one of these has 2 parts. So even if you could answer it, yep, nope, don't. Answer it in 2 complete sentences. And I'm going to give you some fake questions today because I don't want to influence any of your answers. But again, for a short answer, we're expecting 2 complete sentences. So you would write your 2 sentences right in here, fake answer. And then except that would be capitalized and you'd make it a complete sentence. And then you do that for the second short answer, and then you'd hit next again. And your last question is always going to be an extended response. Now, for the extended response, you're always going to have basically a 4-part question. So for these, we want a 4-sentence answer, complete sentences. Now, again, you probably don't know a lot of this material, or maybe you've forgotten about it, and that's okay. It's a pretest. But your next unit test and all these future unit tests, you're going to be expected to know this material. And unlike this test, those future tests are going to be timed. I'm going to say, okay, for 4th period, I'm releasing it at this time, and it is due, 50 minutes later, and so on and so forth for each class. So you're going to have to be on top of your game. We're going to have notes in here, and if you take good notes, I don't know how I can stop you from looking at your notes. So that's your advantage. But if you're looking up a bunch of things in your notes, you're not going to have as much time to answer the questions, which is why I'm going to keep the test timed. So you have to turn in your test by a certain time limit, which I'll make clear to you, or you don't get credit for it. Now, if anybody is thinking to themselves, well, hold on, I'm on an IEP or a 504 or something like that. Well, I'm not going to say anything about those. Those are individual in your own business, but I will follow whatever those say. And if it says extend half an hour, then you will be afforded that half an hour, of course. But for most of you, it's going to be that exact limit that I set, which is going to be 50 minutes. So you're going to have to be on your game. When you are done, you submit it. And then that goes into my folder, and I then will have the responses to grade. Now, it's going to automatically grade the 34 multiple choice for me, which is nice, but then I have to read through the prompts to grade the written responses. And when I grade those, I then put those in Progress Book. And that's something I wanted to make sure you knew, that your grade, your grade that counts, that's on your permanent record, is the one that I register in Progress Book. So, for example, since I have to grade those by hand, I'll just say, let's say you got 30 out of 34, which would be awesome. And then on the writing, you got 14. So I just have to take 30 and add 14, and I've got 44 out of 50. It's a pretty good score. That's an 88% B. And then I put that in Progress Book. I don't even bother putting it in the Google Classroom, because the Google Classroom automatically just answers the multiple choice, so it just thinks you got a 30. That doesn't bother me, and I don't want it to bother you, because that's not what counts. Progress Book is. But when it comes to a document of the week, it lets me actually communicate with you, and there's no thing automatically grading it because it's a Google Doc. I will write in your real grade there, whatever you exactly earned. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, it'll become clearer and clearer as we move on. So let me skip a few slides here. This is our Unit 1 file, by the way, and go to this intimidating looking slide. Boy, that's a lot of words. These are the standards for American history according to the state of Ohio. And they have certain themes and topics, but basically there are over 30 of these what we call content statements. So number 1, the use of primary and secondary sources include an examination of the credibility of each source. That's something we're going to work on in this very first unit. And we're pretty much going to go in chronological order. Like Unit 2, we're going to work on the Declaration of Independence, the Northwest Ordinance, the Constitution, including your Bill of Rights. You don't have to know all of these. You're going to know all this material. But if you ever wonder to yourself, why is he teaching us this? Because the state of Ohio told me so. That's why I'm teaching it. I've got these 33 things that I am charged with teaching you. And if you ever say to yourself, well, why are we learning about the Harlem Renaissance? I just randomly picked number 18 here. Because it's in the standards, and that's my job. Besides, I love all this. I would teach more than here. I would teach everything that's here, plus a bunch of stuff that's not in here if I could, but I only have so much time, and because I want you to get a great score in the air test, I'm going to focus on what they're telling me I have to teach. But if you ever wonder, that's where I'm getting this stuff. But we're going to end today, at least this part, on some hints for test. So non-honors in particular, I think you could use this hint. Honors, I think some of you just intuitively know this or have figured this out over the years, and so I want some of my other students to have this sort of hint too, and that is the idea that I'm going to give you a series of questions that are absolutely ridiculous and don't matter, about things you don't need to know, to highlight some style things you might see in questions, even on state tests. And that is, like for a multiple choice, you are going to see that sometimes the answers have a pattern. And a lot of times if you notice that pattern, you can, if you're going to guess, you can at least eliminate some really bad choices, they call them distractors, and have a better chance at getting a question right. So I'm going to give you an example. Nobody cares what my wife's name is, but I'm giving you 4 choices here: Vicky, Sarah, Bob, and Fido. Now, listen, you don't know me, and it doesn't matter. But what I'm trying to do is say, okay, you don't know. If you had to guess, if this was a real question, I said my wife's name, so we could probably get rid of Bob. And Fido is traditionally a dog's name, so we're probably going to go ahead and get rid of that. Now, is it possible it's one of those two? Absolutely. But the probability is it's one of these two. So now when you're guessing, you're giving yourself a 50-50 chance. This is a good strategy. If you're going to guess, first off, don't ever just leave it blank. If you leave it blank, you're absolutely going to miss it. But if you're going to guess, make your chances better, because if you guess out of these 4, you have a 25% chance of getting it right. But if you guess out of these 2, you have a 50% chance of getting it right. So it doesn't matter, but just because if you're wired like me, you'll want to know, what is my wife's name? Take your guess in your head. It is Vicky. Okay, but nobody cares. Oh, but it's spelled with an I. She cares about that. Oh, good grief. Okay, what color is my car? Boy, this is a question that I think is really interesting because they ask questions like this all the time on real tests like the AIR. And obviously not about a car. What they'll say is like, which president did this? This is actually even on the AP exam sometimes. And they'll list like 3 presidents and they'll throw in Ben Franklin. Hey, if you didn't know it, Ben Franklin wasn't even a president. He was a founding father, but not a president. So even if you're going to completely guess, don't choose Ben Franklin because he wasn't a president. So same idea. What color is my car? You don't know and you don't care. But you know 4-wheel drive is not a color. And neither is 6-cylinder. Those aren't colors. So again, even though you're going to just be guessing, at least give yourself a 50% chance. And the correct answer is, I'm such a nerd, I've only owned this color car for the last 25 years. Yep, it's true. Blue. Yep, Sandusky Blue Streak Blue. No kidding, I just like that color anyway. I drive blue Hondas, that's it. I don't, if they ever run out of those, I'll start walking. Okay. So, I wrote this last year before the pandemic. I actually didn't do, 2 of these things did not happen this particular summer, but we'll just go with a normal summer. Okay. We'll go back to the same notion of I'm just trying to highlight a point. Sometimes on a multiple choice question, if you're only choosing one thing, or excuse me, if you're saying which is something you did not do, you're looking for the thing that doesn't quite fit. And you don't know me or care, but could I have gone boating over the summer? Sure. Could I have gone hiking? Sure. Now, this summer I didn't do any traveling, but in other summers I like to travel, and so could I have traveled? Sure. The thing that seems least likely, the thing that sort of stands out as being odd, is winning $24 million in the lottery. Now, every year when I have a live class and I show that example, I say, why? And they have the wrong answer. They say, because if you won the lottery, you wouldn't be teaching history. Oh, you're wrong. I would. I would just have cooler props. No, the reason it's $24 million in the lottery is because the odds of winning the lottery are like 1 in, I don't know, 10 million or maybe worse. That's why. The odds of me boating, I mean, people boat. The odds of people hiking, people hike, travel. Not too many people win $24 million in the lottery. Okay, so there'll be 34 questions like that, but obviously a lot tougher and about actual history and things that matter, not the silliness that I wrote. But most importantly, 33% of your grade, 33% is going to be based on writing, every unit. And so when you get to the short answers, remember I told you earlier, 2 sentences for short answer questions, 2 sentences. Now, each one of these short answers has 2 parts, and it's worth 4 points overall. And I want to let you in on the secret, because it's not a secret, about how we grade these. If each part is worth 2 points, and the question is worth 4 points, basically, you have an idea of how the point breakdown is going to be if you leave something blank. So in other words, if you just answer nothing, if you have the question, if you won $24 million, what would be the first thing you would buy and why? And if you just leave it blank, you have 0 points. Now, if you answer half of it, if you won 24 million in the lottery, what would be the first thing you would buy? And you just say, I would buy a really big house. Okay? You just got half credit on that. If you don't even answer the second half, I can't give you the other half of the credit. Answer why, and I can give you full credit. Now, because it has 2 parts, it might be easier to think of it as 2 points. In reality, each part has a little leeway about how well you answer it, but just for the purposes of practice here, let's go with a 0, 1, and 2-point answer, pretending it's worth just 2 points. If you won 24 million in the lottery, what would be the first thing you would buy and why? And you write down unicorns. You can't buy unicorns. You know what? I'm not even going to say unicorns because somebody's going to explain how you could. Okay, so let's go say rainbows are pretty. That's what you write down. Rainbows are pretty. You didn't answer the question what you would buy, so you'd get 0 points. Now, somebody else says, I would buy a mansion. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Then they describe that mansion for like 5 sentences. It's like the greatest description of a mansion ever, and they write all this stuff out. They still only get half the credit because they didn't answer the second part. Some people get confused in the idea that they're like, well, I don't know all these parts, but if I answer the heck out of this first part, I'll get all the points. Nope. It's what would you buy and why? Oh, I would buy a mansion because I'd want to be able to have everybody in my large family to be able to live in the same house, or whatever you come up with. It doesn't matter. The idea is that you answer both parts. So let's kind of practice on this one. If you had to leave Ohio, where would you move and how would that change your life? And if you write, I wouldn't leave, you can't get any points because you're not doing what the question says. If you said, I would move to California, then you'd get half credit. Even if you really described why you'd move to California, you still can only get half credit because you didn't answer the second part. Now, if you said, oh, I would move to California and it would change my life because I wouldn't have to live through winters anymore, because the weather in California is pretty much nice all year round, and yada, yada, yada. Whatever you would put. The whole key here I'm trying to drive home to you is be sure to answer all of the parts of a question. That's why I wanted to drill in your mind, if it's a short answer, do 2 sentences. 1 sentence for the first part of the question, 1 sentence for the final part. Then the last question has 4 parts, and that's worth 8 points. So who would be the first 2 people you would tell about winning the lottery, and how would each respond? So ideally, you're going to have 4 sentences here. So if I won the lottery, I would tell my wife, and she would be incredibly excited and probably jump around and scream, okay? And then I would tell my kids, and they would probably start thinking about how they were going to spend the money even though it's not theirs. They're both over 18. Haha, they can't have any. Okay, so I've answered all the parts of the question. I've said, oh, I would tell my wife. Oh, I would tell my kids. How would each respond? And I explained it. Even if you write it really, really well, and you'd say, I tell my mom and I tell my grandmother, and you just go into all this detail about telling them, but you didn't say how they would respond, I can't give you full credit. So we're going to practice this concept on Monday with actual history questions, and I'm actually going to have you grade some real responses from some state test questions, so you get an idea. That you have to have a complete answer. Some of you have to be sort of untrained in the idea of, if I just write really pretty sounding words and I write a whole bunch of them, I can fool the teacher into thinking I know what I'm talking about. Nope. We're going to need you to actually address each part of the question. So I certainly hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, I suppose you could rewatch part of it, because really all your tests are going to be sort of based on this format. Today I want to remind you of a few things as we close out. Today is the anniversary of September 11th. You're going to see a lot of memorials, a lot of mentions of it in the news, Twitter, social media in general. It's a big deal. It is on par with the attack on Pearl Harbor. Actually, more people died on 9/11 than the attack on Pearl Harbor. Your parents and grandparents and many of your relatives lived through it, and it was traumatic. and it deserves to be remembered. So, maybe catch something on TV about it, and we actually will have that in our very last unit of the year. And then finally, to end on a positive note, click on the other video for today, the Friday Fun Day video. That's just going to be a positive thing, and somebody from each class wins a Document of the Week pass. And then there's going to be an optional video, and that is if you don't know how to see your grade, like what I wrote for your Document of the Week, the feedback I give you, I have a little quick video posted so that you know how to access that. If you already know that one, you can skip, but watch the Friday Fun Day video. It's like 9 or 10 minutes, and it's pretty positive, and you could win a Document of the Week pass. So hope everybody made sense of all of this, and this is really how a lot of your classes are going to be moving forward as we get into the actual material and notes. And if you have any troubles, feel free to email me. I can reach out to you with a phone call or a Zoom call for just you and your parents and straighten everything out. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good weekend.